Welcome to the Pricing Lady podcast, where smart business owners price with purpose, profit with clarity, and go get paid. Today's episode was inspired by a conversation at a recent networking event. During a conversation with a bunch of startup founders, someone asked why I thought businesses tend to underprice. Mid-answer, something clicked. The low end of the market acts as an anchor that weighs people down. That's where we're going to start this episode and what we're going to be talking about today. The problem here is that most business owners start underpriced. Not a few, but the vast majority. And it's not that they're bad at math or that they just lack confidence. It's that their reference point is a problem. People look at the lowest prices in the market and treat them as instructions for what they're either allowed or should be charging, instead of using that as simple data that they put into a bigger thought process. Now, an anchor doesn't just mark a spot. It actually holds you and keeps you tethered to that point. So a low-end anchor doesn't just affect your price positioning now, but it keeps you from moving later on in your business, even when your business, your experience, the market, your customers, or your results are saying you should raise those prices. It keeps you from actually being able to do that, either at all or at least in a timely fashion. So that begs the question, why people anchor to the bottom end of the market? I have a few ideas about that I'm going to share with you. And the first one is simply it feels safer. There's no rejection. Nobody will pay attention to it. It won't raise eyebrows or get in the way of getting clients. So it feels safe. The reality is it's much riskier for you and your business. The second reason is they think that being cheap is a good tool to use to get clients. So they're compensating for being new in the market before there's even a business there. The thought process here is, I'm new, I don't have proof yet. I'll use price as a thing to convince people to just try it out, to just say yes. So you set the anchor, as I said, before you even have a business, and you attract people who say yes to the price instead of yes to your offer. So here you may get clients, but you're building a market of people who say yes to the price and not to your offer, which again is a risk for your business downstream. The third reason that people tend to anchor towards the bottom of the market is simply that it feels easier than doing the work they're unsure how to do. So chances are you never learned how to go about setting a price. And if you didn't learn that, of course, it feels this much harder. That leads usually to procrastination and self-doubt. And that becomes a cycle that I see very often repeats over and over. And people wait, and then make a last minute decision. And anchoring to the bottom is what they end up doing because, as we said, it's the easiest thing to do rather than actually doing the work. Again, risky for your business now and into the future. Another reason that they tend to anchor towards the bottom is they act like the lowest price always wins. And I find this one a little bit funny because oftentimes I will ask the question, okay, how many people in this room think the lowest price always wins? The vast majority of people will say, no, of course not, of course not. But when you dig into how they're setting their prices, how they're communicating them, how they're having sales discussions, their behavior tells a different story. And this is really important. We're going to come back to that in a moment. Because if you behave like the lowest price always wins, then you're going to always be relying on finding ways to lower the price when you feel uncomfortable. whether that be before you send the offer, or during a discussion, or whatever it is, it becomes your default mode. Another reason this happens is they think price is the deciding factor in a purchasing decision. Now, of course, if your target customer is highly price sensitive and looking for the cheapest solution, then of course you need to align your pricing with that. But for most small businesses, that's not the best positioning in the market for you. It's very hard for a small business to have the economy of scales to be able to be the low price leader in the market for any significant period of time. And that means that differentiation becomes your main value driver. So you want to understand what customers love about what you do, how you do it, how you deliver it, what it brings them, right? So that they are focused on those things, and you need to align your pricing then to what they're really basing their decision on. So if you think that price is the deciding factor and it's not, then once again, you're going to default to finding ways to lower the price in order to gain clients. But if that's not what's driving their decisions, it's going to backfire. Now, the last reason that people tend to anchor towards the bottom is because it feels more credible. Well, for some insane reason, people see the bottom end of the market of, oh, that's where everybody else is operating. I have to beat that, or I have to operate within that end. They're there. I should be there too. It's not so much fear of missing out, but it goes back to that safety factor. If that's where everybody is, I need to be there too. So it kind of feels credible. And the problem here is that while those prices exist and there will always be low price leaders in the market, or there will always be lower prices in the market, maybe that's a better way to say it, it doesn't mean that those prices are right for your business. Now, the people and businesses offering similar to what you offer at that end of the market may be using that offer in a different way or targeting a different market group. They may be completely not profitable. You don't know. So you have to be careful about what you tether yourself to. And that's why at the beginning, I said that people tend to use the low end of the market as an instruction of this is where you're allowed to operate, instead of just data and using that as one input and looking at the big picture alongside it. Now, you might be wondering, all right, pricing lady, how do I know that this is true and this is really what's happening? I have proof, in a sense, that this is sort of a default mode that people are tethered to. So quite often when I give talks, I will open with an exercise to get people's creativity going. And one that I often do is I ask people to make 2 lists. And they have about 30 seconds for each list. First, I ask them, make a list of all the ways you can think of to lower your prices. And then 30 seconds later, I say, flip the page over and now make a list of all the ways you can think of to raise your prices. What usually happens is the first list, they're scribbling away and they're all creative, and you can see the energy that they have for making this list. And when they get to the second list, after about 1 or 2 ideas, they're stumped. Most people sit there a little confused, a lot of thinking going on, but they're not actually writing a whole lot of things down. It shows where that default already sits. And it's important for me to share with you that part of that default is based on our experience as consumers. So when you're buying things every day, you're buying primarily from the retail industry. And for a lot of what we buy, they are businesses that are trying to shift and move inventory. That's their primary goal. If you think of the clothing industry, get new stuff in, get the old stuff out, so you can bring new stuff in, get the old stuff out. Now, of course, they use a lot of tactics and strategies, discounting strategies to be able to do that. But if you take those strategies and tactics and you apply them to a service-based business or a high-value product-based business, it doesn't work well. It definitely doesn't work the same. Usually it backfires. So the reason, or one of the main reasons that people can be very creative with that first list, is because that's what they experience and see and are trained to believe is normal as a consumer. And then they try to take that and apply it to their business. They don't see the efforts to hold the price and raise the price as a consumer in the same way that they see businesses lowering prices, offering promotions and discounts. So it's natural that you wouldn't have the same breadth of knowledge there. But this behavior, again, shows how strong that anchor is because it's reinforced by what you learn being a consumer. The challenge here is that you're not just leaving money on the table. You're pulling in clients who choose you based on price. And clients there are generally not loyal clients. So if somebody else comes in with a lower price, they are gone. Once you try to raise your prices because maybe you realize you have a profitability problem, then, they're gone because somebody else has a lower price. So you've built a market on a business model that you can't sustain. And it makes it harder the longer you wait to break the tether that you have to that anchor. I'd like to leave you with this to reflect on. When you set your price, what were you anchoring to? And is it still weighing you down? That's all for today. Choose a better anchor, price like you mean it. Now go get paid.